Welcome to week number 4, biology students. This week you're going to do 2 short assignments looking at food webs and trophic pyramids. I'm going to break this up and do 2 short notes recording for you. See how fast I can go. This is review. This whole section that I'm talking about here is review. You've seen this before. All right, so the first one is looking at factors in an ecosystem. We're looking at biotic factors, which are all the living things, anything living that's in an ecosystem. This is a picture of a mangrove. I'll write it on here. Anybody seen a mangrove? You would have to go to Florida to see it. These are tree roots that are in here, and these tree roots are underwater, which provides lots of habitat for fish to hide in. So there's plants, animals, fungi, bacteria. We could do North Dakota too. Abiotic factors in this one would be all the non-living things. So how much moisture, the temperature, amount of sunlight, the wind, the sunlight, soil. I think it's going to be 70 degrees this week in West Fargo, so the temperature will be awesome. Hopefully there's no wind. Hopefully the abiotic factors are all in our place. We can go out and go for a walk or a bike ride. Can't wait. All right. We're going to talk about food chains in this, and so we have to look at the layers of food chains. So we're reviewing a little bit with the producers. So producers are going to provide energy for other organisms. They're called autotrophs, because auto means like you write your autobiography about yourself. So they're self-feeders. So auto equals self. Troph means feed. So they can make their own food. Now, what is the process where these autotrophs make their own food? And from the sunlight? Remember? Photosynthesis. So they're using light to synthesize their own food. So quick little overview of it. So it takes light energy from the sun, and then the plants are going to absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which is a really good thing because we have too much carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. And they're going to have to take the water, and it goes into their roots. So those two things then are going to work together. CO2 and H2O are going to be recombined to make glucose. Anybody remember glucose from the macromolecule unit? What its formula is? C6H12O6. An important, what does OS mean again? Right? It's an important sugar. So those plants can take CO2 and water and change it into a sugar that they can use for their own food source. And the other important thing they do is they give us oxygen. So they give up oxygen. So that producers or plants do lots of wonderful things for us. And they're at the bottom of the food chain. And we need to eat plants. So there are different types of consumers, and consumers now are heterotrophs. So hetero means other. So now these are other feeders. So troph meaning feeding. So they have to get their energy from something else. So here I put this in here. We cannot just stand the sunlight, although we'll probably do it on Tuesday when it's 70. But we can't just make our own food standing in the sun. It would be nice, but we have to eat something else. There are different kinds of consumers. Again, these should be review. Herbivores are consumers that eat plants, like my little deer here. So the deer is eating a plant, but then there are carnivores, like my wolf, and the wolf is eating the deer, food source. And then there's an omnivore, and the omnivore I have on here is a bear. So this bear could be eating the wolf. They're fighting there. Or it could also be eating the berries. So bears eat wolves, or they can eat berries. So they are called omnivores. We also have detritivores, which are scavengers. So I have a scavenger here is my eagle. Eagles are, national bird, and they, yes, will eat living things. So can snatch a rabbit or a rat or a fish out of the lake. Have you seen that? If you've been in the lake, they swoop down and make a splash in the water. Or they can just grab things that are floating in the water, and so they are also scavengers. You can see that crows, anything that's eating roadkill inside the road. So they're breaking down all the dead stuff, which we need. Got to get rid of that stuff. And then there's also decomposers like bacteria or fungi, which are mushrooms there. And mushrooms break down dead stuff too. We need that, or we would be covered in all of this dead organic matter. Every time the grass dies, anytime an animal dies, it would just be laying there. So we need something to break it down. All right. So now that you know the different types of consumers, now we can start putting together food chains. And so this is just a model of how we can show a sequence of feeding relationships, and we can see the connection between producer and the consumers. So we have the producer, which is the grass, as a review. That goes into the desert cottontail, and the cottontail would then be a herbivore, which is a consumer, and then the hawk would be the carnivore, which is also a consumer. Producer, herbivore, carnivore, which are consumers. We always show the arrow one way, so the arrow always show the direction of energy flow. So you've got plants and we've got phytoplankton. Phytoplankton is a fancy word, but it's the plankton in the ocean. If it's phyto though, phyto means plant. And that goes into the zooplankton, which means animal. So you have the phytoplankton going into the zooplankton. So the zooplankton would then be your herbivore, like the grasshopper, which then goes into carnivore, which would be the fish or the the mouse, which then goes into the snake, goes into the hawk, or into the bigger fish that are here. And we are talking about layers of these. So we have primary producers that go into primary consumers, herbivores going into secondary consumers, and then it just kind of goes up the food chain. Tertiary and quaternary. We'll talk more about that when we do the energy pyramid in the next set. Food chains, though, are really simplified, and actually how things eat is more like a food web. So this one, you're like, oh my gosh, look at all the arrows that are there. That's really how it is, because animals are going to just eat what is readily available to it. So you can see the shad fish here is going into the cormorant. And there's lots of arrows that are showing what the direction is, but the arrow always shows where that energy is going. So you can see the person there, he's going to eat the bass. I wouldn't eat a bass. I would look for a walleye. But there's no walleye on my food web, but that's what I'd want to eat on a bass. But they're saying you can see the arrow going in. So you can see it's a very complicated relationship. All right, so as a review, food webs and food chains. Now you're going to do an assignment and try to construct your own food web. It's not too hard. You have to drag things around in pages, and then you're going to answer some questions on Schoology. So good luck with that, and then you'll move on to your second assignment after that.